two, one. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Inside Movies Galore. I am your host, David Strachey, and here in the room I have a very legendary William Lee, or shall I say William X. Lee? Which is it that you prefer?
William Lee is fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got in the independent film industry? And you're not just in like any kind of a genre. You know what I'm saying? It's like kind of all over.
Yeah.
So why don't you go ahead and tell us about yourself?
Well, I was born in New York, and my father was a World War II veteran. I was sort of the October surprise because I was born 20 years after my brother and sister. So my parents were doing it well into their 40s. And when my dad was 40, I was born 1961. And we lived in Long Island, New York. I have nothing but really amazing memories about being a kid in New York and growing up. Sometime in 1966, Dad received a transfer to the Midwest. Being a black aircraft engineer in the 1960s was really a unique thing. So he had a lot of opportunities that a lot of other families didn't have. The move to Ohio was a life-changing event for me because, as I detail in many of my biographies, in my latest film, Black Wolf, which is this revenge epic where I go after all of my high school bullies. They're now fully grown and they're international terrorists. And now my assignment is a pretty easy one to go assassinate them all. But as I left New York and moved to Ohio, I was basically a man without a country. All of my family and relatives were back on the East Coast. We moved into a housing project in Dayton, Ohio, which was a big change for me because in New York we had our own house, we had property. We were out on Long Island on the beach. Now we were in a very urban setting in a city that I knew nothing about. And I was roundly rejected by my black classmates. I was told I acted too white, I was too straight, I was too interested in getting an education, all the things that normal people might like to do. I was just the odd man out. So, thus began the bullying of William Lee. And that lasted well into my high school years. And finally, in 1974, my God rest her soul, my sister, took me and a couple of friends to a local drive-in. And there was this triple feature of movies featuring some guy named Bruce Lee. And prior to that time, I had heard about Bruce Lee and had all of his magazines, but had never seen his films. So my experience up to that time was taking a karate class at a local YMCA in the midst of being bullied. And when I let me back up a bit, because when I say bullying, I mean good old-fashioned getting your ass kicked, being called names, being told you like hanging around white people and Chinese people and Mexican people too much. You're not really black.
And I'm sorry that you had to go through that. I know I went through it as I was a kid. So
it's and it's tough because all of my memories of now I went to grade school first in New York, which was a beautiful thing because again it was family. It was down the street. I lived next to Italian wise guys. We had a multicultural, diverse neighborhood. So my experience in New York was totally different from what I was getting thrown into in Dayton, Ohio. And to on top of that, my father was traveling every week. He was not around for like Monday through Friday. He was there on the weekends. Now, that is not to say my dad wasn't the fucking best father on the fucking planet, because when he was home, I was the center of his world. And Dad would call home every week. Billy was what he called me. Billy, how you doing? He's checking in on me. And Dad, greatest man on the planet. And on top of that, a World War II vet, played in the Negro Leagues, and then became an aircraft engineer. Excuse me, I'm not worthy, So anyway, so finally in 74, I started really getting into martial arts. And so then by my sophomore year in high school, people were afraid of me. It was just like overnight. And it was because my whole self-esteem and my whole view of the world changed at that point, because seeing Bruce Lee did what he did against impossible odds said to me, there's a way to get out of my situation. And that way was learning the martial way. And the martial way to me was becoming self-confident and realizing I wasn't the one that was the bad guy in this picture. I was the good guy. And it took me some time to realize that. Now, just a few years prior to that, my father, being the awesome dude he was, had an interest in photography during his Army years. I mean, he was in Europe. He got to meet Greta Garbo, all the great stars of the motion picture era of the 30s and 40s. And so his love of photography sort of washed off on me because I was taking pictures of my nephew and myself playing baseball. And I said to myself, what would really be cool is, can I get motion out of these pictures? Duh, motion pictures. So he then said, well, if you want to do movies, you work, we'll take your allowance money, we'll order this Super 8 movie camera. And dude, ever since then, it's just like filming, that's all. I mean, my whole, as you can see in back of me, you know, it's all, it's movies and producing and writing. Everything I did was self-taught. I had no formal schooling in filmmaking. I just picked up a camera, learned how to use a light meter, expose film, different types of film. Our editing process, and now some of your listeners may be amazed to hear, we didn't have digital editing back in 1974. We had something called a moviola. And a moviola required a strip of Super 8 film to be run through some gears, and you would crank it with your hand, and I would watch the images flicker. I would find the point at which I wanted my edit. So in other words, somebody's throwing a punch and somebody's being hit. So I'd find where the fist was right about the impact point, cut it with a razor, basically. Mm-hmm. Find the other end of the film where the fist was hitting the person. And, you know, Super 8 film's about this wide, okay? So I cut it and then tape it together, run it through the projector, and for 99% of the time, I was dead on. So all of my film experience was basically me buying something, taking it out of the package, and trial and error, and figuring out how this thing worked. So
and that kind of brings us into talking about your first feature film, which is out there on Blu-ray, which is an amazing thing to probably see for yourself.
Yeah,
you know, since you went through the whole process like years ago, and it was probably painstaking.
Oh yeah, and the thing about it is actually that was I made. There's a couple other films that are on that DVD which I actually made before Treasure of the Ninja, but my actual first really coherent feature film, Treasure of the Ninja was it, which I think why people think it's so special because, I mean, it was bare bones. I mean, we had a Super 8 camera. We didn't have sound equipment, so we had to dub all the voices afterwards. And it was basically an assemblage of coworkers and friends, and we ran out into a park that had a lot of woods in it, and basically we were just fighting ninjas. That was the plan.
Well, and I think the thing that's kind of cool, since we're not like a week off from 9/11, I mean, I kind of watched this like a week before when 9/11 was happening. So seeing the World Trade Center towers in the background was painstaking because they're actually fucking there. You know?
And well, you know, anytime I see something about back home, you have this real visceral reaction to it because I can remember that day running through Chinatown. My sister was such an inspiration. She supported everything I did in film. She's the reason I'm still doing this, is because any film I would make, be it a really small scale film or something like Treasure of the Ninja, she thought I was the greatest thing on earth. She's walking around New York telling everybody, Williams, you know, he just finished his latest movie, you know. So the shooting all that stuff in New York to me is special because I actually went in that Chinese restaurant and ordered food and ate, and then came out, and then the World Trade Center thing, we were always by the World Trade Center in New York. We'd always just go there. It was just something you'd go, oh my God, they actually built this thing, you know. And you know, I lived in New York at a time when it was being built and being erected and went up, and finally when it went up, you were like, oh my God, they did it, you know. And so all of that footage in New York, as you said, watching that, you're watching this film, but then again, you're reliving what happened while you were filming this. And now to think that they're gone. And then when I went back in 2002 and they weren't there, I was just like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Are you really? Yeah. Where are, you know, you're so used to coming into the city and there they are. And now it's like, no, they're not. They're gone, dude. They're, you know, so, just incredible. Yep.
So you did say that this was not like your first film per se, but it's your first like film that. So why don't we talk about some of those earlier films? Okay. I know some of them came out as bonus features on this Treasure of the Ninja Blu-ray. Go ahead.
Yeah, the one is called The New Chinese Connection, which to me is very close to my heart because obviously Bruce Lee was my hero, and this was my attempt to do the sequel, the third, the third sequel to his Chinese Connection. So all the black characters have Chinese names, and we're in the Qingwu school, and my name is Li Chen, and it's a bizarre mixture of everything. And this was a film that I made the year I graduated high school, and so. We shot the film, I edited it, got developed and all that, and then actually came back to my high school the year after I made it and showed it in the school gymnasium. And the first time in my life I ever received a standing ovation was at my high school gym. Dude, I cannot tell you how life-changing something like that is because it's like you do all this work in your house in the basement and nobody ever sees it. And finally you got an audience and you're sitting there, oh my God, what do they think? And the movie ends and they went insane, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing something right. I got something here. So, again, that was very encouraging to see that. Now, in retrospect, looking back at it, now obviously I'm going, oh, that sucked, and the sound was bad here, and stuff you do 20/20 vision. So then we did a film called Dragon versus Ninja, which was done, I think, my third year in college. And my ex-wife is co-starring in it, and all my really close friends, James Garrett and James Wiley, who are both now ex-Marines, former Marines, excuse me, and they were both really skilled at gymnastics in high school, and so we had them flipping in. And to be honest, that is really my personal favorite film because we really did a Chinese style film. In other words, the fighting in that film is really we use all the style, the tiger, the snake, whatever, and it's more like a Shaw Brothers film as opposed to Treasure of the Ninja, which is a more coherent film for American audiences, which I totally get. And also that those first two films were edited directly on film, so the splicing interferes with the soundtrack a couple times. So it sort of is a bizarre experience, But again, we were kids. We were experimenting. I was trying to recreate Bruce Lee in my head and do everything he did, and that's what you wound up with. So when we talked to the American Genre Film Archive, I told them if they're going to do Treasure of the Ninja, if anything, put those two films on there because those are an important stepping stone to where I got with Treasure of the Ninja. So yeah, that's where we got that at.
Okay, very cool. Speaking of Treasure of the Ninja, now where did you necessarily film the film? Like area location or whatnot?
Yeah, obviously we did all the New York shots in New York City. Obviously the Chinatown stuff, all that. Then we shot the majority of the film in Columbus, Ohio, where I am now. I worked at an NPR radio station. I was a sound engineer, and I also did a lot of creative stuff that they really hated because NPR is very serious, and we're telling you the news. And I had these big parodies online, like Fire Sign Theater, and they couldn't stand. A lot of the staff couldn't stand it because everybody was just, we're serious news people. I was like, dude, I'm trying to have a good time here. So so I had a lot of the co-workers at the station in the film. And then people we recruited in the area. And then there's a park just north of here called Antrim Park, which had this wonderful lake, which is called Wrangell Lake in the film. And the funny thing about it is, since we filmed without sound, if we had filmed with sound, you would realize it was right next to a highway. I mean, traffic was zooming by while we were shooting, and it was like, oh my God, if we could have never done that film with on-set audio because it was planes going over, traffic, kids playing, mothers playing with their kids, people on the little fake beach they have out there. So
honestly, I think it was a little better that you filmed it without sound because then you wouldn't get that Japanese audio like that. That second blip that you always get within the mouth moving, and then you hear the words later. Seeing a film like that is priceless to me. Seeing it that way. So to me, something like that to accomplish that. Now, if we could get like a Godzilla set with that fucking shit on it, that would be great. That's besides the point. So let's continue with how was your film, The Treasure of the Ninja's reception when you actually got it? Because from what I understand, it actually had a premiere back when you actually had it completed and whatnot.
Yes. In fact, I was going to show you. Oh, yeah. Let me just step aside here. I've got this right near and dear to me. This is a picture from the actual premiere date, October 14th, 1987.
Nice.
And that's me. And there's the girl in the booth wondering who the hell is this guy. And that was and that was a very important date for me because, as I said, my father was, he wasn't strict in the sense that he was mean to me. It was just that Dad was always about, you got to work. You got to have a job. And of course, there's the old paradox about getting a real job if you're a filmmaker. Well, I never had that issue because when we shot Treasure of the Ninja, I was working 3 jobs. I was working at a drive-in movie theater. I was working at a library.
Okay.
And I was also working, I'm trying to find, I forget what the third, a pizza place. So my weeks were full with work, regular work, but on the weekends, it was like, we're shooting this Treasure of the Ninja movie. And again, we had about 200 people in the theater. It was very early in the digital age because what we did was we shot the film again on Super 8 because of money constraints, obviously. You shoot 16 to 35, you'll never make your movie. The cost of 16 35 millimeter stock was more expensive than the cameras itself back in those days. So we shot Super 8 silent film, again, saving more money than shooting sound film. And we edited on what was called 3/4 inch videotape, which is this really thick, ugly tape that they would put in reels and pop in this big ass machine. And it was all old fashioned shit. And the quality for those days was better, nowhere near digital, obviously. So it would still have that VHS look to it, which actually works now because people want to see, archival footage and that kind of thing. So it worked out. One thing people don't know about is that after we got the film done, I had a friend who actually knew a film distributor in Hollywood. And they wanted to release this film on VHS back in 1987. I mean, this was going to be a big deal. This is like hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line. The problem we ran into was because the technology was so arcane, they wanted me to increase the resolution of the 3/4 inch tape, which unfortunately was impossible. We couldn't. You only get so good on tape. I mean, I could have gone to 1 inch or whatever. I don't even know if they had 2 inch back in those days.
If it was on like reel to reel, you'd probably be able to do it, but on a VHS tape, no.
Yeah, and we couldn't do it, and in a way, it was a missed opportunity. But by the same token, maybe I wouldn't have had this happen now with the Blu-ray. I mean, who knows? Because that tape went around the world 3 times. To this day, I still don't know how. But yeah, because it was like, I think about 10 years ago, I started getting emails from around the world about Treasure of the Ninja, and I kept saying, "Where the hell are you all getting this movie at?" I sold it out of the trunk of my car, and then I got a phone book for New York, the 5 boroughs in New York: Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens, Yonkers, whatever, and sold it to video stores there, and out in the Midwest, St. Louis, and some other big cities. And I figured, that's it.
It's amazing how much video survives these days,
Yeah.
So after Treasure of the Ninja, you went out and did a film called Edge of Tolerance. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
So why don't you tell us about that production?
Edge of Tolerance is another film that, you know what? I got a copy out of here. Hang on 1 second. Yes, here we go. This is one of the original VHS copies, still in shrink wrap. Trying to get some of that reflection off of it. But anyway, so in order to do this, I have a friend named Joe Daniels, good friend for over 20 years, and he had a graphics company, and he took a picture of me and cut out the background and popped it on a blue background and did the titling, and then we took some pictures from the film, as usual, typical VHS wrapping. I have had people offer me hundreds of dollars for these things, But Edge of Tolerance was my attempt to become a serious filmmaker, because it was a film about this voodoo priest guy who also knew kung fu, and he was going up against a Russian drug lord. And then I started adding all these other stories into the mix, and it was just by the end of the movie, you're going, God, what the hell's going on? But there was a lot of fighting, so that covered up for the fact that the story was in 100 different directions. But we went to a company called Tapeworm Video, which again, this was back in 2000, and they were one of the first independent labels that was just taking independent filmmakers and putting them and selling them. So what I would do is I would go to the video duplication place, have them print up 100 boxes, 100 VHS tapes. They'd package them, send them off. They'd send me $10 a copy or whatever. So it was pretty much easy transaction. I'd send them the check, they send me a check, which is today is a whole nother ballgame. But again, this movie, like Treasure the Ninja, went around the world too. People know about it. I get emails about them all the time. It doesn't have the same nostalgic feel as Treasure the Ninja. I thought there were some good fight scenes in it. I'm not especially enamored with Edge of Tolerance because, again, I was sort of losing my way because I didn't think people wanted to see Ninja anymore. I've been proven wrong, obviously. And I was trying to branch out to this new genre of martial arts with political statement, and it was a lost film to me. But like I said, some people like it. We did a lot of really good lighting in it, a lot of 1990s film noir with the blue and the red lights in the background, and we did the blinds like a Fritz Lang German expressionism film, and it was just too much. I call that the too much movie. I was just trying to do way too many things at once. And we did the same thing. This time we edited on 1-inch digital, so the quality was a hell of a lot better. And we shot on 16, as a matter of fact. Okay. But again, we did the dubbing, the same type of dubbing, same Foley and that kind of thing. But but Edge of Tolerance, I mean, it's a nice movie. Obviously not my favorite, but again, I was at a point in my life where I was just trying to figure out where I wanted to go with martial arts, and instead of keeping it simple, I made the filmmaker's mistake of trying to do things that probably I should have just let alone. So. Lesson learned, but it's one of my films, so I claim it. Yeah.
Okay, so out of these two films that we've talked about so far, is there a favorite moment that you had on set while you were filming either one of these?
Oh yeah, Treasure the Ninja. Well, there's a couple. Obviously, the whole New York thing was wonderful because again, I was just having a good time being home. I mean, that's just. No brainer. We're going to a Chinese restaurant. Yeah, we're going to film World Trade Center. Great, let's go. I'm running 34th Street. Oh man, it was awesome. And the interesting thing about Treasure the Ninja is the lead ninja is played by a guy who claims he was one of Bruce Lee's students. Now, we have a couple of problems here because the math didn't quite add up to his claim. Because if he had actually trained with Bruce Lee, he would have been about 3.5 years old. So that was problem number one. Number two, he was a martial arts instructor in Columbus, Ohio, and many of the people that are in the film were his students. But I'm going to be straight up with you. This guy was a sadist. He would physically injure these guys. And in fact, one of my best friends in the film, who is still a lifelong friend, was one of his students, got his nose broken by this maniac in training. And this guy was just nuts. So during one of the scenes we were choreographing, he hits me. So I stopped and I stepped back and I said, "Don't ever do that again." And he looked at me, he started laughing. He says, "Oh, it's okay, you can take it." And I pushed his hand away. I said, "You don't understand me. Don't ever do that again." So I thought I was mad, but my co-star, the guy that plays Stephen Chase, the guy with the black suit and the black hair and the machine gun, he's a close friend of mine. He was going to actually whip this guy's ass right there. Because he had, Mark, you think I'm serious about phony people. Mark couldn't stand anybody with any kind of phoniness, and he was ready to take him out. And I said, "Mark, forget it. Let's just finish this movie. We'll be done with the guy." But yeah, that minute stands out for me because I tell people now, I really hesitate to work with martial artists on my films because I've always found it's easier to teach an actor to do martial arts than it is to teach a martial artist to act, because martial artists are always in competition mode. I've got to show you how good I am. I've got to show you I'm the next Bruce Lee. And it's like, dude, it's a movie. Just stand there, take the punch. So I have shied away from working with martial artists unless they're really good friends. I have a couple of really good friends who are martial artists, so they understand me. I understand them. But just blindly picking martial artists out to act in action films, you're always going to be headed for a world of trouble because they don't understand it's a movie. They're always competing.
I think that's kind of like when. What is it? Keanu Reeves took and did 47 Ronin. It's like he was so known for like straight up roles. So when they put him in it, like a lot of people got like taken aback from it or whatnot. Yeah. So
yeah.
Even though he's like in a different league than. Like say you and I, so
right, yes, yeah.
But in any case, is there a favorite moment that you can take from your next film, Edge of Tolerance?
Yeah, edge of tolerance. Like I said, we were really concerned about the technical side of things. So we would be on set. I actually had to. I was working for a video production company at the time, so it was easy to get lighting equipment, and we use what is called Mickey Mole lights. And Mickey lights are the Hollywood lights they used the 30s and 40s. They still use them. And the great thing about these lights is if you break them, you can fix them. I mean, there's no sending them off to be shopped or waiting for them to be replaced. The Mickey Mole light, you get a screwdriver and you reconnect the wires and cables, and that sucker's back and ready to go. So the good thing about that film was I had an ample selection of lighting equipment, everything that, even if I didn't ask for permission to use, I was able to use from the company in order to, make my movie have the best look possible. So, like I said, picture-wise and visual appeal-wise, I do love that film because, as I said, we were really, really concentrating on how things looked, and that to me was important. And again, I think I was just a little too concerned about impressing film people, and it was like I didn't have fun, I guess, is my thing. Edge of Tolerance was not a fun film for me.
Okay.
It was more just so worried about everything being, just got to be. And it's like I really should just taken a step back. And you can even tell through my acting in the film, it's like I'm just so freaking serious through the whole movie. It's not fun, it's not fun. And
okay.
I forgot. Go ahead.
Did you happen to use any other actors and actresses that you used in Treasure of the Ninja in Edge of Tolerance?
Darren Waugh, who was the student of the nutcase on Treasure of the Ninja, actually he was an extra in Treasure of the Ninja. Now he was my co-star in Edge of Tolerance. Okay. And so, so we formed a bond. Yes, and I'm glad you said that because Edge of Tolerance is where I and Darren really formed this awesome bond because in between Treasure of the Ninja and Edge of Tolerance, we did a bunch of TV stuff for a local cable service. William Lee's Human Time Bomb was the name of this show we did. We shot it all on video. It looked like shit, but it was fun. We had a lot of friends working on it. Those tapes are still sitting around here somewhere. Someday somebody will find these tapes and edit it together. I can't. It's just too much. It's all on 3/4. It's just more of a hassle. But yeah, between Treasure of the Ninja and Edge of Tolerance, Darren and I formed a really good friendship. He's an awesome martial artist. He still does martial arts. He lives in North Carolina now, so I don't get to see him as much. But his impact on the fight scenes and choreography was important because I had one way of doing things. He had another, and it was wonderful to see a new mix of doing fight scenes in the film as opposed to everybody fighting like me in the same way through the whole movie. So yeah, I'm glad you asked that because that was probably the most important difference and motivation for Edge of Tolerance as opposed to Treasure of the Ninja. Somebody who was just an extra and all of a sudden they're like my most important cohort on the next film, Yeah.
Okay. After Edge of Tolerance, you did a project called Room 13, the Terrorist Project, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Why don't you tell us about that project?
That, there were several years where I didn't do anything. And there was a couple of reasons. After Edge of Tolerance, we were contacted by some investment group out in San Francisco who said they were going to put up all this money for us to do films. Long story short, it was a scam. We got bilked out of tens of thousands of dollars paying for so-called legal paperwork, and then they just vanished. I had to deal with the FBI to investigate them. There used to be a show called Entertainment Tonight. They were going to put me on to talk about this shadowy company that was ripping filmmakers off. And then in 1997, I got into an automobile accident.
Ouch.
And after that accident, it triggered a disease called lupus, which is a life-threatening, ass-kicking, will take you out of this world like a motherfucker. And so in 1997, all of a sudden, I started experiencing all these symptoms. I was losing weight. I lost 45 pounds. All my hair just fell out.
That's what I read about.
Yeah. I had scar tissue. Skin was actually peeling off of my body because the immune system was so beaten up by what was going on. My liver had actually stopped functioning, period. Intense pain all the time. I was popping 5 or 6 leaves a day. And as you know, you're supposed to take 1 a day. I was popping 5 or 6 of them. I couldn't taste food in my mouth. I couldn't stand up. I got put in a wheelchair after a while. So finally, in 1998, after a year of hell and getting ready to die, there was a dermatologist in Philadelphia who recognized the symptoms of lupus, and he looks at me and says, "Okay, you got lupus." And I said, "Fine, what the fuck is it?" And so then began a year of absolute hell for me because at that point, I was sitting on the couch at home 8, 10, 12 hours a day, just a lump of flesh. And my dad finally looked at me and said, "Son, what do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I'm not going to sit here and die. I'm going to get up and live." And so I got up, bandaged myself up. God bless him. My father spent 3 hours a day bandaging up all this deteriorating flesh with bandages with this acidic solution in them. And then I put on a hoodie and I take my black ass to the gym and I would work out, even though I couldn't lift 5 pounds. And I went through a year of going in that gym and screaming my lungs out. I guess people thought I was just out of my fucking mind, but the pain was just so. I still cannot believe that was part of my life because it was just like a dream, and it was a horrific dream.
And I'm sorry that you went through that. I mean, no one should have to go through
that. You know, it's hereditary. I mean, it picks its victim, and then it starts. It's just like cancer. You know, it just chooses you, and then you just deal with it or you die. And and so a year of just mind-numbing, painful work. And then it was a year later, and all of a sudden I'm taking the bandages off and I'm taking the jackets off, and I've been through chemotherapy for a year and a half, and now it's like, wait a minute, I'm okay, I'm good, and people were like, "Dude, what? You don't look like you went through anything." Obviously I did, but it was like that's how lupus is. It's such an internal thing that now I'm in shape, I'm back to quote unquote normal, and people were like, "Man, you look awesome," and so that sort of put the film career on hold. So then I became a certified personal trainer, did that for a couple of years. And then before we shot Terrorist Project, I was sitting at home and my wife came in with a video from Blockbuster Video, and it was a bullshit kung fu movie from Blockbuster.
Okay.
Vampire ninjas from Atlanta. I forget what it was. And she looks at me, she says, "If they can make this shit, you should still be making movies." And I looked at her and I said, "You know what? You're right." And so my wife basically unleashed this monster who in 2000 started another 21 years of making movies, and I was back at it. And Treasure of the Ninja was just a simple story about a U.S. Intelligence agent who starts capturing terrorists and torturing them, but then his definition of terrorist becomes anybody he doesn't like. And so that's basically the whole movie. And it's actually my wife's favorite film. To me, the reason I don't like it myself as much is because, again, this is the very beginning of the digital age, and it was better quality than my last film, but to me, I was still a film guy, and I was like, there's this texture to film and this density and this grading and this color, and it just wasn't happening. It was just very flat. We actually got the film to Lloyd Kaufman at Troma.
Okay.
And I will never forget this phone call. The guy who was representing my film told me that Lloyd had signed the film, it was released. And he said, "Hey, Will, you've got your first real release." And dude, I was all over telling everybody how happy I was, and this was going to be the greatest thing ever. So we go for several months, and the film never gets released. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on? So I call Lloyd Kaufman. He gets on the phone, and he tells me my sales guy killed the deal because he wasn't getting enough money from the deal. But the sales guy that did it didn't tell me. He just let me stew for like 6 months, wondering why my film hadn't been released. He kept saying Troma was having problems releasing it or whatever. Dude, I was totally pissed. I had trusted this guy with my film, thought he was my friend, but it was all about money. He didn't want to sign a deal. So I got off the phone with Lloyd and basically self-distributed it through IndieFlix. And again, it was, it was a good feeling while it lasted, but then when the truth finally hit that I had been screwed, it was like, now my feelings about that film were like, I don't want to relive that anymore. It's just like, it wasn't really a good chapter for me. So, it was my first film after being nearly dead, but it was not a great experience.
Okay. Sorry that you went through that. I know.
No, it's good. I want people to know. I like people to know that the film business is not all glamour. I mean, when I teach my courses with my kids now, and in fact, before I talked to you, I was teaching 37 kids at the University of Louisville, and my first words to them is, this is a business first and foremost. Forget all that bullshit you see on TV about getting your big cars and your mansions and stuff. I said, if you treat it like a business, you will never go crazy and say I failed, because you'll understand. If you go into it with this starry-eyed, I'm going to be famous, and it don't happen, now you're suicidal and you hate the film business. Don't ever go there. So I told them, always approach it as a business and you'll be happy. So, yeah. So I like to tell those kind of stories.
Okay. Now, tell us a little bit about what Terrorist Project is about.
Yeah, it basically, again, it's a guy named Camiglia who worked for the government, and he is first engaged in getting Middle Eastern terrorists into his. We have a actually this. We filmed all this in the basement of my old house because I had an enormous basement, and it looked like an interrogation cell. It was just bricks and cement floor, so it was perfect. So then we bought some plywood and made walls for it, and we had a chair and whatever we could grab to make it look more like a interrogation room. And we shot everything in my basement basically, and we had 5 or 6 interrogation scenes with, one guy was a Middle Eastern terrorist, and there was a Catholic priest who was a pedophile, and then we had somebody who worked for the government, and then we had a street hoodlum guy who came in, and they all, he kills all these people. So then I play Mr. Stratton, which was my father's last name. I play Mr. Stratton, the general who decides to take the Camiglia out because now he's causing a problem. He's not killing the terrorists we want killed. He's killing American citizens.
Okay.
Now I got to go deal with him, and I have this big scene where I call in this Russian female agent to go seduce him and kill him. So I send her in. She goes in. She sets him up. She blows him up with a bomb. And at the end of the film, I come back, and now I'm blackmailing the president of the United States, and I assassinate him. So there's the movie. It was a good change of pace for me because, like I said, my love is still martial arts films, but it was just good after being sick as a dog and chemo and all that other stuff. Just to make a movie with people, and it was a coherent plot. I was happy with that. It was a trial run to get back to what I'm doing now, basically.
Okay. Did you use any actors and actresses that you had previously in this film? Or did you go with new actors entirely?
New actors, because it had been, 6 years, I'm thinking. Yeah, maybe 6 years since I had actually shot a film. So this was like, man, this was just, God, years and years later. So basically starting off from scratch, basically. And it was people that I posted auditions for, and people would audition, and they'd be in it. And a lot of those people, there's only like 1 or 2 of them that I actually still work with because people move on, obviously. Mm-hmm. But it was all new cast, and but everybody pretty much did their job, and it was, like I said, quality wise, nothing wrong with it. Just it was digital, and it was in the digital age, and we didn't have a lot of money. So yeah.
Okay. How was the film's reception to once you actually put it out on like some kind of platform so that people can see?
The platform we put that out on was something called IndieFlix, which is one of the very, very, very first DIY distribution outlets. And it was moderately successful. It wasn't anything like Treasure the Ninja or any other film that I've done because it was really new. And as everybody knows, DIY distribution is absolute hell if you don't have a following and you don't have the way to get out. And that was really almost the infancy of the internet. So it wasn't like I could go on Facebook and say, "Here's our movie," and it was just they had this little post. It was these horrible poster boards online where it was like typing on an old typewriter, and it was really Courier font against a gray background, and you really couldn't post. It took an hour to upload a picture, and it was like hell. So in order to promote it, a lot of it was really like local promotion. So we really couldn't get that wide of a response to it. But like I said, it served its purpose at the time. I mean, it was a film. wasn't terrible. It wasn't over the top. As I said, it's my wife's favorite film. So maybe I'm just not seeing something that she sees.
Okay. So your next project ended up being Soul Rippers, correct?
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that project?
Soul Rippers was originally a film that I believe the title was Demonic Force, and I had originally written the film for myself to star in, and it was a guy who teams up with these 2 Ghostbusters types, and they're fighting this devil, vampire, demon guy and his Legion of Doom, and basically that was the whole scenario. Well, I decided that at that time that I was getting too old to be starring in my own films, which was incorrect, but hey, I was whatever, chemo was affecting my brain. I don't know. But really, I thought it'd be a good idea to engage a younger audience at this point. And so there was a guy named John Woodruff who was in Room 13 as an extra. And once again, you go from extra to starring in my next film, because you find that a lot of times extras will prove themselves when they're not really being pressed to do like really hard, demanding starring roles because they're just being themselves. And John is still a very good friend, and he's a hell of an actor. He even produces his own movies, which to me is the greatest compliment ever. When I work with somebody and then they go on to do something similar to what I've done, I'm like, okay, I did something right. I've influenced somebody to go on and make a name for themselves. John also had the incredible opportunity to. He's a great looking guy, so he was also a model. So he went over to Japan and became one of the biggest models in Japan for about 10 to 15 years. And then he moved to LA and he's doing great now. So, but yeah, so I played the father figure to him, teaching him how to fight this horrific vampire overlord guy. And so it was my first time to actually get back into a martial arts type role because physically I had been beaten up over the lupus and the chemo and stuff. So I got to do my martial arts. I got to do training sequences with John. It was all very cool. It's a pretty decent film. Still can be found here and there. Was shot on digital video, just like Room 13. And I think we had a premiere for it too. And people liked it. I mean, again, you're limited when you don't have money, and you're limited when you have limited locations. We shot it here in Columbus as well. And again, shot a lot in the basement of my old house again. This time we made it my headquarters. We just shifted stuff around. So, as an independent filmmaker, you got to be creative. You got to think of different ways of doing things. And
definitely,
yeah. So really, that was an enjoyable film for me because again, it was getting back to martial arts and doing the types of things I really like. So, no complaints on that one. Loved it. We were working on getting it released, but we just couldn't find the right outlet. The important part about that film was I met my current sales agent on that movie, and that really changed my life because he was the guy, obviously, that started getting us into Redbox, Tubi TV, all the big money-paying platforms. So as far as that goes, Soul Ripper is the film that got the attention of my sales guy, which eventually led to me being able to have films that actually pay me some money so I can actually keep doing this crazy stuff. So that was an important landmark.
Nice. So after Soul Rippers, you got into another project called Demons Rising from 2008. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that project?
Demons Rising is a story of a project set loose like a wild dog chasing after raw meat. Demons Rising was clusterfuck A1. I mean, we could probably do a whole show on it. I'm going to sort of give you the snapshot of that film. And first of all, when we started shooting this movie, there was a local guy who claimed to be a film investor. And he told me, like he told so many other people, that he had $25,000 he was willing to give to any filmmaker who he could be the producer of the film on. The big thing was there was sort of this catch where you actually had to make one film by yourself to prove to this guy that you could actually do it. Demons Rising was this film. So I made the incredible mistake of writing a script that was entirely too long with too many characters and too many storylines. We had a total of 70 people working on this no-budget independent film. We had people coming from Australia, from South Dakota. People were flying in from everywhere. No one was getting paid a damn thing except a thank you and a deferred contract, which meant that if we got paid, everybody got paid. The linchpin of this whole nightmare was an Australian actress who sent in an audition tape for one of the scenes, and she was totally nude. Now, let me qualify that by saying the role did call for her to be nude in this scene, so it was entirely appropriate. But we were at that time we were impressed by the fact that she would consent to do this kind of audition because I mean I'll give her credit for that. She was a great actress. So she flies over from Australia at her own expense, and we were trying to figure out where to put her up at because my wife and I had a 2,600 square foot house. We had plenty of bedrooms, blah blah blah. But my production manager Chris, who lives in Dayton, Ohio, said, "No, I'll take her. I'll let her stay with me." And I said, "Chris, are you sure you want to do this?" I said, "This is sort of awkward because, it's a woman and, shit happens." He said, "No, it's fine." Well, long story short, he ends up falling in love with this actress from Australia. Meanwhile, her goal is to be as big of a bitch as she could. So she became a diva immediately. There was a scene where I was getting blown up and she was supposed to react to the explosion and run up the stairs. Well, I walked out because I had a long shooting day, and I told my director of photography, "Okay, get it shot. I'll be outside." Okay, 1 hour later, okay? They're still shooting, her reacting to an explosion. My director of photography comes out, tears in his eyes. She just wants to keep doing takes. And I looked at him, and I said, "Andy, tell her she's got 5 minutes, and then we're out of here." So he disappears. Another 10 minutes, they all come up. She's got her arm folded, and she's huffing like a little baby, crying that she couldn't get the right emotional content for this reaction scene. And I said, "You're supposed to act like I blew up and run out of the basement. What is there to get into? Just do it." And she had this whole explanation of why. And blah, blah. So anyway, we get home. We get to my house for the end of the day wrap, and she and I are having a heated argument in my house, and that's a no-no. We don't fight in William's house, especially if you're an actress in my film. And so I decided to fire her on the spot. And so the next day, if I recall properly, she disappears. So she had already completed most of her principal photography, so there's no big deal. Fine, she's gone. She disappears for 2 weeks, which was coincidental because one of my other co-stars, another male, also disappeared for those 2 weeks. We found out later they just decided to go on a road trip around the United States in the middle of filming this movie. She comes back to the set 30 minutes before she has to get back on the plane to Australia. She boards the plane. Bye. Done. And that's just one of the amazing tales of this movie that has become a nightmare. I had a guy who was supposedly a martial arts expert who thought he was also a master cook, a massage therapist, a yoga instructor, and a psychic, all in one. He almost jabbed my eye out with a Chinese, what they call a bow staff, during one of the fight scenes because he was so untalented in the realm of martial arts. And then when we were wrapping the entire film, he was trying to walk off with about $2,000 worth of makeup that he claimed he thought we were going to give him because he was doing makeup during the film. And to put the cherry on top of the entire story, and I'm giving you the short version of this whole horrific thing, the investor turned out to be a pedo who was only in it to meet young chicks for sex. So, yeah, so Demons Rising, you can
probably has more mythos than the myth that you created.
In fact, that was the last movie my wife worked on as producer. That's how grueling and horrific that film was, because she said she didn't want to work with actors anymore. She was done. So she hasn't produced a film since Demons Rising. So that's your brief recap of that horrible film.
Moving on to a film that is called Code Black. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this project? You filmed this in the same year as that, or?
Yeah, just maybe a year later. Code Black was a welcome change because I went back to simple script writing. I was a gang lord who was dealing with one of my proteges, and my protege had been brainwashed by the government to actually infiltrate the drug empire and take us out. That was the story. Thank God that was it. This film was my first really big international release because a company called York Entertainment out of Los Angeles picked it up. And during those days, when you got a distribution deal, it went places. I mean, it was in retail stores. It was at every mom and pop in the country. It was at Blockbuster and Hollywood Video, which were the two big ones. If you got in Blockbuster and Hollywood Video, basically you were the man. And I was the man for quite some time. And eventually it got released overseas in the UK and France and everything. Sad thing was, we later found out York Entertainment was they specialized in black independent filmmaking. They also specialized in ripping off black independent filmmakers because while they made over $1 million on my film, I never saw a dime because of their bullshit contract and the way they did business with filmmakers. And so they picked that film up and ran with it and kept coming up with excuses why I wasn't getting paid. And eventually they were sued out of business because they also had the film Demons Rising. So they had both of my films, selling them, making money. And Tanya York, who ran the studio, was basically on vacation in Florida the whole time, just getting checks and cashing them and not doing a damn thing other than getting them released and collecting all the residuals. So Code Black had a good and bad side to it. It was the one that got me notoriety. People began to really respect what I was doing because they understood at that time it was just really tough to get a distribution deal. And I was out there. Code Black was all over. I mean, it was just phenomenal. We actually... One side note, our film also went to Netflix, which is an interesting side note that's not often talked about. But in those days, Netflix was a send you the DVD through the mail type service. It wasn't like it is now. But Code Black was on the original Netflix, which I do and acknowledge with pride because Films, like I said, a lot of films were not going anywhere. A lot of independent films being made. The market was saturated because digital was now in vogue. Everybody was shooting a movie. Everybody was sending them off, but not everybody's getting distribution. So I took that deal because it was our chance to get out there. I mean, I never expected to really make a lot of money. I didn't expect to get totally screwed either. But by the same token, that is the one that made us a legit company. And people were like, okay, so these guys are actually out there. So lesson learned. We got burned, but by the same token, I tell all filmmakers, you're always going to get screwed on your first deal. It's just the way business is done, I guess. Rite of passage. So yeah,
definitely. Did you use any previous actors or actresses that you used on any films before this?
Code Black? Yeah, and this is another case of somebody doing an extras role and then going to something big. Sylvester Person, who stars in Code Black, was in Room 13 as the thug who was being interrogated. So he went from that small role to actually headlining this film. Sylvester was a very raw talent. When I first met him, and I've told him this 100 times, so I'm not telling any secrets that he doesn't understand. I really didn't think he was going to make it. His acting was not very good. He didn't understand the business. He just wanted to be famous. Mm-hmm. Credit to Sylvester. He now does video work with Martin Luther King's daughter in Atlanta. He has his own video production company. The kid he's my greatest success story. I love him like a son. But as I said, I had real doubts about him when we first embarked on Code Black because I actually went to the hospital for 2 weeks on that from the stress of dealing with Sylvester. I almost collapsed on set, and then there came a day where I could not swallow. And I had something in my throat, and I swear to God, I thought I was going to die. And it was like, okay, I already went through lupus. Now I've got heart problems. So I was in the hospital for 2 whole weeks. We had to stop production. And then I got out, and we resumed, and we finished it. And so the problem with Sylvester was he didn't understand the filmmaking process. In other words, he didn't understand simple things like films are shot in a nonlinear fashion. We don't shoot scene 1, 2, and 3. We shoot scene 1, 42. Yeah. And he couldn't understand why we were doing that. It's like, well, why aren't we shooting the whole movie? Dude, we are. We just got to utilize the locations that we need and then move on to something else. And since the movie takes place all over the place, we shoot what we need at the warehouse, and then we come to this. And he didn't get that. And it was driving me crazy because him and the other co-star just thought I didn't know what I was doing. And I was really insulted. And he knows this. I've told him this story many times. But after the process was over with, it was edited, had its premiere, he was just like, Will, you are a genius. Now I understand. and so, again, it's a process with people, but he was very raw. As I said, he just did an extra part in the first film, so he only saw one scene, so he didn't understand the bigger picture. But after Code Black, Sylvester became a professional. God bless him. He's a great guy, and he's doing fabulous things now.
Okay. Now, after Code Black, you did a film called Dark Target. Why don't you tell us about that project?
Dark Target was simply based on the Hurricane Katrina. And it was a story about the government introducing something in the water to kill the underclass of people after the Hurricane Katrina disaster. So during the disaster, they were going around injecting a serum in the water. It's a storyline stolen straight from a Jim Brown, Fred Williamson movie called Three the Hard Way. And I just changed it up a little bit. I did not appear in this film. There was supposed to be a black lead in the film, and that was Sylvester from Code Black, but he was now in Atlanta doing his thing. And I didn't want to do the starring role, so we got a friend of mine, a white guy named Brian Spangler, did a great job. It was and again, this is my wife's second favorite movie, so maybe I'm wrong, but we upped the ante on this one because we had a lot more locations. We had a rich guy who allowed us to use his house with the pool out back. We had access to several warehouses and office buildings. The production quality is just out of the world. It's a phenomenal production quality film. But again, it was shot on digital. And again, being the film guy, I still was not really good with digital because we still didn't have HD. It was still 720 and 480. And it was like, I had done film all my life, and I'm like, this is just not what I want to do. But at the tail end of Dark Target, digital cameras started coming out. Mm-hmm. And so now it was this, and I'm glad you asked this question about Dark Target, because Dark Target was like this second or third era of my filmmaking where now I'm going from, okay, digital's good, digital's getting me released, but digital is not film. Now it was like, oh, so maybe now I can do cinema type productions again, because now we're in the HD. Now we're in 1080p. When 1080p came out, that was just, now I was sold. Now I'm like, I don't want to do another fucking movie again. I want to do digital from now on. Fuck film. I don't want to see a film camera in my life. And it's true, because I was a holdout. Like most old film guys, it was like, nothing's going to match film. Nothing's ever going to match movies. I had so many arguments with these young upstart kids talking about digital. I'm like, you're out of your fucking mind. I'll be shooting film the rest of my life. And they proved me wrong. It taught me a lesson that you can always learn something. I don't care how old you are, you're going to learn something. And so after Hard Target, and when we got into digital, it was like, okay, I'm ready for another 30 years of this, man. Let's go. And it really reinvigorated me, I think is the word that I use, because again, digital, it was still a time-consuming process because it was all tape. So you're dumping all your footage via FireWire onto your computer, but you had to run the tape. So if you had 8 hours of footage, it was 8 hours waiting for this fucking footage, you know? So now with digital, you get the SD card, you pop it in, 5 minutes. I've transferred 50 gigs of HD footage. I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. So, it was during Code Black and those films where I started NLE editing as opposed to film editing. And again, I had to teach myself. First it was Pinnacle, and then it was Final Cut Pro, and then it was Adobe Premiere, and there were no classes, and I didn't go to university, and I had no mentors. It was like, I just trial and error. Oh, that button does that. Great. Oh, cool. What? Oh, good. I can do that again. And so it became, and I think it was important to me because now I could edit a film without a slate. I memorized everything we shot. I knew what order it was shot in. I could download 6 hours of footage, put it on my computer, and I could tell you right where that piece of footage was, just from memory, where that piece of footage was. I'm a little more organized now. I actually have folders, which it would really help. Before it was just like I'm downloading all this footage into my media page, and I'm just like, oh, I know it's about 2 inches down on the left next to that one, and I was just picking it out. And so all my training has been, I've got my own edit system in my head where it's like I know where it is. And now we're shooting separate sound with the video, and I'm like, I'll just go and say, well, that was the third take. I guess it's the third sound clip. That 9 times out of 10, it's the clip that the sound matches the picture, and it's just something my own personal system. I don't have the lingo or the jargon of any of these editors that went to school or have Adobe certificates. I just have my footage. I know where it is, and I put it together. So that Dark Target was the film where I really began to realize that I'm now actually being a filmmaker again, as opposed to being a videotape editor. This digital is, to me, it's the new film. So yeah.
Okay. Now, as to Dark Target's reception, how was it out there in the community? Did a lot of people get to see it?
Yeah, we actually had a premiere here in Columbus. Okay. And people really liked it. Everybody thought it was my best thing I had ever done at the time. The downside is my sister was sick with cancer during the shooting of this movie. And on the night of the premiere, I went home and got a phone call from her, and she told me she was going to die. And it put into perspective what was really important for me, because the cast and crew was out celebrating the film, and I was at home just like my sister's dying. And quite honestly, at that moment, I didn't give a shit about Dark Target. It was just, it was my sister. This was the woman who basically supported me her whole life, and it was all about me making films and Williams the Greatest and blah, blah, blah. And she was dying, and she told me on that phone call, she says, well, the doctors say that my gallbladder is just going to stop working. I'm going to die. And I love my sister so damn much, and I think about her so much. And that night, it was just like, she was just so courageous talking to me about that. She wasn't bawling. She wasn't freaking out. She had accepted it. She was more concerned about how I felt than her dying. That's what killed me. Mm-hmm. It was like, sis, you're getting ready to die, and you're worried about don't worry about me. I love you. I want you to be good. And so after Dark Target, it was like, I was taking her to chemotherapy sessions because, truth be told, her daughters were not the best human beings on the planet. So I would drive 100 miles, pick her up, bring her back to Columbus, take her to the cancer center, get her dialysis, get her chemo, and drive her back 100 miles to Dayton because her 2 daughters were too shitty to actually take care of her mother. So, I did that up until the time she died, and it just, Dark Target, if we're just talking about movies, my best thing up to that time. But then again, there's that whole what was going on during that. It's just importance wise, it was just like apples and oranges, and my sister was the big orange, and the film was just this little apple sitting on the table. Great, good. I did a movie. Get the fuck out. It wasn't important, I guess is the best way for me to say it. I had more important things to deal with. So it's a good and a bad for me on that film. And to this day, a lot of the actors in Dark Target don't know that night that happened. I didn't say anything about it. I didn't bring it up. I really didn't mention it till the day my sister died, and then I just said my sister passed. I appreciate your thoughts and all that stuff, but it's one of those personal things where it's like, fuck everybody, dude. That night it was like fuck everybody, dude. I was just like,
it sounds like it was a very emotional time at the moment too. So,
yeah.
Moving on to your next project, it's called A Cold Day in Hell, but it has another title called Architect of Chaos. Correct?
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that project?
Yeah. And obviously this was when I decided that I was not too old to actually star in my own films, because the films previous to this, I had like other people starring in them, or I played a insignificant role in the films. And this time around, I was like, my sister passed away. I'm out here again, and I'm going to do something I really want to do, and that is me. The thesis of the film is Jesus Christ comes back to earth because the devil's decided to unleash demons on the earth. But Jesus Christ is not your typical walking around blessing everybody and I love you. And Jesus Christ was pissed off. Jesus Christ is basically coming back to earth to whip everybody's ass, and he did not give two fucks about what you thought about him or the Bible or anything else. So my thinking into the film was, I wanted Jesus Christ to be like Bruce Lee in The Chinese Connection. And if anybody knows anything about The Chinese Connection, Bruce Lee was batshit crazy through that whole movie. He fucked everybody up. He was the baddest motherfucker on the planet. My favorite Bruce Lee movie. And so I was like, so Jesus Christ is basically going to be Bruce Lee, and he just whips everybody's ass. And that's what it was. And I loved, lived, and breathed every minute of that film. I loved the fight scenes. The casting was just awesome. We had a couple of people that had worked on previous films with us, but again, we expanded our acting base and got some new folks in it. The only issue with the film was the guy I wanted to play the lead bad guy was unavailable. So we had to settle for a dude who had no clue about being an actor. And consequently, I had to cut a lot of him out of the film and basically make him a minor character. In fact, it got so bad, the day before we were going to film the final shootout, I got my producer friend who had been with me in film for like 10 to 15 years to play an even badder bad guy. So he comes in and kills the bad guy that I hated, and now it's me and him having the final duel in the movie. And that's what really saved the movie, was him stepping in to take over where this other guy was just such garbage. And I guess I probably could have told him, well, you're really not good for this. But at that time, we were coming to the point in the movie where we had to introduce the bad guy. I didn't really have a lot of options. And so we pulled him in. We shot this one down in Cincinnati as opposed to Dayton. We found a lot of new locations to shoot at. A lot of people were allowing us to use their homes. And again, a really good diversity in terms of locations to shoot at. And so it has a very near and dear spot in my heart because it was, again, my opportunity to start doing martial arts like I did. A lot of the fight scenes in there are some of the best shit I've ever done. And I really still love that film. That film is actually going to be re-released this year or next year, and it's called A Cold Day in Hell now is the official release title.
Okay. But it was originally called Army of Hell, correct?
Actually, it's called Architect of Chaos to begin with.
Okay.
We changed it to Army of Hell for Redbox, but Redbox would not buy it. So then it sort of sat around for a while, and then I said, well, let's do A Cold Day in Hell. And so Cold Day in Hell is the title now that is the official title of the film. Joe Estevez is in that film as well, Charlie Sheen's uncle. So me and him are really good friends. Joe is just top shelf, perfect human being. He's like a brother to me. Every time he comes in, we just start hanging out. I mean, you couldn't ask for more from a Hollywood star. It's like, yeah, let's hang out. He called me a couple months ago. When I come to town, we're going to just ride. We're going to Cleveland. I said, dude, I'm ready. Just pick me up. Let's go do our thing. So, yeah, Architect of Chaos. just a film that I can watch. And that's the other thing, which I probably forgot to mention at the outset, is I really don't like to watch my own films. Treasure of the Ninja, when they premiered here in Columbus last month, was the first time I had seen it in its full form in about 25 years. I just didn't watch it. I just don't enjoy watching my own films for the most part. Architect of Chaos, I could watch that motherfucker every day. I'm sorry. I love it. I love the fight scenes. I love the characters. And again, it was really our first all-out, really real digital movie. And so I was able to do color correction and grading and everything I really wanted to do in a film, special effects. I just absolutely love that movie. My wife doesn't care for it, so maybe I'm wrong again, but I don't think so because I really, really love that movie. So as far as action and me getting back into being the person I was prior to Lupus, that was the first movie that I really felt like, yeah, I was back into my martial arts groundings.
Well, I'm glad that it's getting re-released,
Yeah.
And so that people can get to see it.
Yep.
So ultimately, after a cold day in hell, you went about and did a project called Gangsters Incorporated.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that project?
Yes, that was a departure for me, but it was a script I had written while I was under the influence of chemotherapy back years earlier. And actually, I wrote this entire movie in my head while I was on those heavy drugs and sitting at home, scarred up tissue and all that stuff. And finally, I realized I hadn't written it. It was in my. Had dreams about this shit. I mean, I had dreamed the whole movie. It's a plumber in New York who was actually part of a mob, and the mob in New York, and they do plumbing, but they're also gangsters. And then there's this Russian gang leader who comes and he wants to kill everybody. And my character's name was EJ, and he lives in this tenement in Brooklyn, and he has an awesome girlfriend who is a lawyer. And all these crazy characters live in this apartment complex. There's a jealous neighbor who keeps trying to seduce me, and she's having conflicts with my girlfriend. And then there's the janitor, the landlord who's overcharging us on rent. And then there's all these gangsters that are trying to kill us. And then we go on this cross-country trip with $1 million of the Russian guy's money. And it was just this elaborate film that obviously I couldn't film because I didn't have the money to do all this. So once again, I employed a younger actor, put him as the lead as EJ, and I became Uncle Vinny. So this is a chance for me to do New York all the talk. I was, in Brooklyn. I'm going back home. Hey, you stupid guy. What's wrong with you? Get the fuck out of here. So that was me as Vinny, and Vinny was half Italian, half black. He was the first black mafia don, which now was the thesis for the film. So then I got this gray, straight-haired wig, and that's another film I could watch. It's on Tubi TV right now. You know what? In fact, as I mentioned it, A Cold Day in Hell, is that on? No, that's not on. I thought that was on Tubi TV. Well, not yet. But anyway, you can watch Gangsters. There it is. You can watch that on Tubi TV tonight. I absolutely love this movie because it got me back in my New York home, and I was talking about stuff I understood, and I used to live around mob guys, so it was all personal experience. And then the EJ character was a kid he's from Louisville. And so when I sent him the audition, I said, this kid will never do it. But if you watch the movie, this kid is spot on Ray Liotta. Coram Sanford, who plays EJ in the film, I love him to death. When he sent me back that audition tape, I said, this fucking kid should be in Hollywood. I mean, he just nailed it. And so we did this film. We had great characters. The story was phenomenal. Again, one of my few movies that I can actually watch from beginning to end. I was sitting there the other day just watching. I'm like, geez, I could watch this all day long. Because it was just filled with people that in my life in New York that I actually knew. It was based on people that I knew in New York, and just everybody just did their role, and everybody was a character, and everybody was phenomenal. The problem we had was, again, we don't have Hollywood money, so we couldn't do really good audio, and that's what really killed this film because there was a distributor who wanted to release it, but because the audio was just not where it needed to be, he really couldn't do anything with it. So I cleaned it up as well as I could, and we sent it to Tubi, and they liked it enough to put it on, so people can still watch it and judge for themselves. I know the audio is not as great as it could be, but as far as the story goes, I mean, my character ends up killing his wife in the movie, so for nothing else, you want to see why he's killing his own wife. I mean, come on now. Go watch the freaking movie.
And I noticed while I was watching the film, because that's one of the other films that I actually watched, I noticed that just like Treasure of the Ninja, you kind of narrated the story,
Yes.
or except used EJ's character to
Yes,
narrate the
yes.
story, almost in like a Magnum PI kind of a narration, and that's kind of cool.
And you know, that's a really good point, because I had avoided doing that after Treasure of the Ninja because I hate my own voice. And so for Gangsters Incorporated, as opposed to me doing it, I said, I want EJ to be the central character. So him narrating it to me was more effective, because yes, I'm a central character in the film, but I'm not taking over the whole movie, because EJ to me, it appeals to a younger audience. He's like Ray Liotta in Goodfellas was my whole feeling, was I wanted him to be the guy who was talking about it. Every once in a while I'll come in with something, but EJ had to be the driving force in the film, and I think that makes it more effective. And the other thing is, this is a film that I actually put an intermission in the middle of the film in, just like Scarface did when Scarface was released. They actually had a 10, 15-minute intermission actually in the DVD and in the theatrical release. So we did that here. So there's this Italian Enrico Morricone music playing, and then we come back, and then the end of the movie, the same thing. There's this Italian aria at the end of the film as well. So we tried to, you know, stick as close to the real deal as possible. And I love that film because it's just so much New York in there, and it's just, the characters are just crazy. It's got the comic element, it's got the serious element, and everybody played their part, and we shot it all over. We were down in Kentucky, we were in Cincinnati, we were close out to Indiana, we shot some in Ohio. It was just, you know, sets galore. We had a lot of people, really nice houses. Thank God they let me use them. And it just was all over. And I really enjoyed it. Like I said, another one of the films that I can watch from beginning to end.
Okay. How was its reception, by the way?
We had a premiere at a friend's restaurant. It was just like an old Italian place, and dude, it was just like out of the fucking Godfather. It was phenomenal. People actually, they loved this movie. Quorum's father walked up to me and he said, "You know what? That movie really has a good story to it." And I was really honored and humbled when he said that, because, you know, a lot of people go to my movies just expecting the action and whatever, and I said, you know, this is life, New York life. This is what they do. This is what we do, and I wanted people to see that. And his father really appreciated that. And to me, that was important, as opposed to somebody saying, "Yeah, it was great." You know, he actually had a specific point about the film that he really, really liked. And if they love the story, that's what movie making is about. So I'm glad that he got it, because that's what I wanted.
I watched this film with my fiance, and she made a good point to me about this film. As far as gore goes, you don't really have to show it in your films.
Yeah.
In fact, she thought that the way the blood splatters was kind of cool. But the reason why I mention it is because I think she's actually right about that your films so far that I have seen are not, what is it, as violent as many of the films that you see today, but the violence is what is it? It's more like it's suggestive.
Yes, yeah. And you know, I'm from the old school. I mean, there are gory films which just are gory for gory's sake, but I think a lot of times what you don't see really is a lot more effective. It's just like when Tarantino did Reservoir Dogs. People think it's just all gore, but when you really sit down and watch this movie, a lot of shit is happening off screen. I mean, there's sirens going on, there's gunshots, but you don't see any of that action happen. You just see the before and the aftermath. And in a lot of my films, when something like that gets ready to happen, I just cut to black. You hear a gunshot, and you go, "Oh God, what happened?" So yeah, I mean, sure, there's times when we can get gory, but to me, I think a lot of times that distracts from what you're doing. I mean, if you're going to do a horror film, sure, go ahead and gore it up. But for our purposes and what we do, the human act of what you're doing sort of overrides having to show everything. I don't think you have to show everything. You shouldn't have to show everything. A lot of off-screen stuff, like I said, it's just as effective, because now the viewer has to use their imagination. Oh my God, what, you know, even in Goodfellas, not Goodfellas, in Gangsters Incorporated, when I shoot my wife, it's off-screen. Screen goes to black, you hear a shot, you know she's dead. Well, God, what happened? So yeah, yep.
So the next project that you got involved in was called 3 Knee Deep. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that project?
I teach entire college courses about that film because it is the prime example of how Hollywood fails us now. Three Knee Deep was not my idea. It wasn't a film I wanted to do. I didn't plan the artwork. I didn't come up with the title. And I will tell you what happened. We were shooting scenes. We were finishing up Gangsters Incorporated. And I get a call from my sales guy. And he says, Redbox wants you to do their next movie. And I'm like, what do you mean? Because we haven't made a next movie. He says, no, you don't understand. They have a project that they want somebody to film for them. I'm like, oh, cool. And he says, and if you do this one, we got a 5-picture deal. I'm like, okay, let's go. So anyway, so then he sends me the title of the film, which I have no clue what it's about. It's apparently some jail term about how you kill somebody. You want to get them 3 knee deep, like three, whatever that means. So I said, okay, what's it about? Well, it's 3 gang guys who get this cocaine and they run off with it, and then they got to find it. This is a bullshit stereotypical story. I know what they wanted was the typical black ghetto garbage movie, which I totally hate. But anyway, so I said, okay, well, how much leeway do I have on it? He says, it's your baby. You do what you want. I said, okay, cool. So then I changed it to a Jamaican drug lord who actually is college educated, and he's doing this to get out of the drug business. He wants to become a legit businessman. So I totally flipped the whole concept of the film. So then they sent me the box that you have there was sent to me with 2 different heads on those bodies. When I first got that picture, that wasn't me and Angela on there. There was 2 totally different actors. So they took that artwork and cut their heads off, put my head on the guy with the gun, and put Angela's head on the girl in the back. So that's how that started out. So then we had the outline of the script. My sales guy sent me $3,000, said, I need you to shoot a trailer for the film. So we went down one Saturday with the cast, and we just shot a trailer that has there's nothing in that trailer that appears in the final film, okay? Totally disembodied. Because we didn't have a script at that point. He said, just shoot some action sequences and we'll throw it on. And I want 30 seconds long. We went, shot it, boom. Redbox has it posted a week later. So then we go out and shoot for 6 weeks with this new script that Redbox didn't want or has no idea that I'm doing. We shoot out on a horse film in Lexington, Kentucky, which was really awesome. And then we shoot at my friend's restaurant in Cincinnati, and the same restaurant we use for Gangsters Incorporated. And then we shoot all over. We're in Cincinnati. We're in Columbus, Ohio. We're all over the place. Again, good production values with the various locations. Okay. I get most of the actors from Gangsters Incorporated make it over to 3 Knee Deep. We shoot it. We get it done. I get it edited in a month. I get it ready to go. I make a couple of masters of the tape. So I'm out in my car, and there's this frantic call from my sales guy saying, Redbox wants it now. You've got to get the FedEx by 5 o'clock and send it to Minnesota so they can make 45,000 copies. Like, wow! So I rush home. I grab 2 masters out of the box that I had made for the film, put them in an envelope, ship them to FedEx. So about a month later, I'm all over the world. I'm in every Redbox kiosk in the continental United States. Thousands of copies sold. And then my wife and I get home. We put the video in, the DVD in, and we're playing it. And it comes to about 20 minutes into the film, and there's no sound. And I'm looking at her like, what the fuck? And this goes on for about 3.5 minutes, and the sound comes back. And I'm like, Redbox had gotten 2 masters of the movie. One was a master that wasn't quite finalized. One was the final one. And for some reason, they picked the one that was not finalized. So there are 2 sections in the movie where it's just total dead silence, which was never meant to be released. To this day, Redbox never discovered they had the wrong master. It was released all over the country, and they had the wrong copy, and nobody said a thing, but I still got my check, and that's all I care about. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. So we re-released it from Bayview Entertainment, called it King Killer. We came up with a whole new design for it, but this time we had the correct master. So that one, there it is. That's 3 Knee Deep, just with a different name. And okay, so that's a Hollywood story for you. Again, Redbox didn't care about anything, and this is what I teach my students. Redbox only cared about the title, the artwork, and if I had a really good trailer. They didn't even watch the fucking thing. And they were totally happy with it. And that's how Hollywood operates now. It's like if you get enough eyes on it and people are interested in it, as long as they get that first week's revenue, they love you. They absolutely love you. They don't care. So I tell my film students all the time, doesn't mean you can put out a shitty film, because they probably fast forwarded through it and saw the shooting and the imagery and like, oh, this is great, let's go. But the way to get a film deal is those three things: title, artwork, great trailer. Pretty much you're in the door. And then after that, if you deliver a halfway decent film, you're going to get paid. It's just business anymore. The art has totally gone out of Hollywood. They don't care. They got that flash. They want that flash, and they want that first week's revenue, and they're good. And that's how that came about. And so that's actually one of my. It's a favorite movie of mine because it really introduced me to a new level of show business. I mean, before I had releases, but in terms of getting really good, big money for a film, this was the first one, and it wasn't anywhere near the struggle I thought it would be. It's like Hollywood. I mean, Redbox called us. I didn't have to go hunting for a distributor. It was like, we need you to make this movie. Here it is. Here's your money. Thank you. Have a good day. Mm-hmm. It's all transactional, folks. I'm sorry if you get into it with this idea of worrying about your red camera and your production values and all this other garbage. Redbox paid me the same money they were going to pay a Hollywood company for their big movie with Bruce Willis. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news to the idiot that just bought a new red camera. It's the way it works. If you get their attention and you make a good enough picture, they're going to pay you. But if you overspend on all this fancy equipment and all these little doohickeys and big name stars, your bottom line is fucked, because you have to pay them now. I didn't have to pay anybody extra. It was all no name actors. All the money came to me. I paid my staff, and then I paid me. Game over. You know, so it's a whole new thing. Yep.
Okay. So the next project that you went into was called Straight Outta Hate at first. Mm-hmm. But now I believe it is called Burning Down Babylon, correct?
Straight Outta Hate, and this is another way about how the business is a bitch. Straight Outta Hate was also picked up by Redbox. But this time, because of the controversial nature of the film, they actually watched the movie.
Oh.
So they called my sales guy and said, we're going to do a partial buy. Now, a full buy is where they buy 20, 30, 40,000 copies of the movie, and you get a really nice check. Partial buy is they buy 50 copies because now they want to do a test with the audience to see what the reaction is. The bad thing about it is, with that test, is they don't do any pre-promotion. They don't let anybody know it's coming out. They don't even tell you what cities the movie's being released in. They just take 50 copies, and somehow they pick some city somewhere and they release it at Redbox with no fanfare, no publicity. So we were dead in the water before it even began. So they tell us the film's out in Redbox. I get on Facebook and I'm talking to everybody all over the country to go to Redbox and see if my film is there, because Redbox would not tell me where my film was. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? They just blindly released it and said, fuck you, William, you go out there and see if you can. It was like searching for Dora the Explorer.
Where's Waldo?
Yeah, where's Waldo? And I had people like, all of a sudden, hey, I found one in Dayton, Ohio. Hey, I found one in Louisville, Kentucky. Hey, I found one in Indianapolis, Indiana. But there was never a real Redbox release. It was just like some people got to see it, and it vanished. And that was the end of the deal. They would not buy that movie. And they claimed because not enough people rented it. But it was like, you've already fucked me because you've only got 50 copies and you won't publicize it. Mm-hmm. How's anybody going to like it if they didn't know what's out there? Which was really fucked up. But I guess Redbox didn't want to deal with political issues, which, okay, I get it. But don't buy my movie because you really like the artwork and the trailer was cool, and all of a sudden you get cold feet and decide, well, no, let's not do it. And then you fuck me by not even publicizing. People don't even know it was at Redbox. It was an official Redbox release for 3 weeks.
Basically, they fucked you because they decided to have a conscience.
Yeah. And so whatever. It's one of those stories of Hollywood where it's like you think you've made it, and all of a sudden it's like, well, now we're sort of going to bail on this one. And I understood. It's business. It's what they do. But it's just like they didn't make an attempt to even get this thing out there. It was just like, okay, let's put 50 DVDs out across the nation, not tell anybody, and hope that people find it and start liking it and renting it. It's like, it doesn't work like that. The market is too saturated with films. You got to have some kind of publicity, So So that was where Redbox was like my savior. Now they were really being dirty, and there you go.
Definitely. So, did you use any actors and actresses that you had used before in previous films in this particular film?
Yes. Angela Williams, who was in 3 Knee Deep, and she was also EJ's girlfriend in Gangsters Incorporated, was the lead in this film. Angela Williams is a superstar. That's all I can tell you. She is. If you ever watch her on a film, she just glows, and she's just a tremendous actress. And it's funny because when I first saw her online, I said, I'll never use her. She's too stuck up. She's just too high and mighty. And I met her, and she's the most wonderful person on the fucking planet. And I love her like a daughter. And it's just like she just knocked it out. And in this film, she just took over. We start calling her Angela Davis because she took the role on like she's this real revolutionary, and she just carried the whole film. And I think the mistake I made in the film was. My sales guy actually pitched this. I didn't want to do this. This is another film I didn't want to do. It was a film that my sales guy thought was relevant, and he wanted to do it. And it was funny because I love my guy. He's a white guy. He's awesome. I love him like my brother. And he wanted to do a film that spoke to the black experience. But I think what he didn't take into consideration was we're still dealing with a very corporate entity. Redbox is still corporate. So when you start getting this touchy subject areas like that, I kept telling him, dude, I don't think they're going to want to do this.
And at this point in time, there was a lot of, and I hate to say a lot of it online, maybe too, but there was a lot of black, or should I say, people of color.
Yes. Yeah.
That were getting shot on the streets by cops, and it was a very relevant issue at the time.
Yes.
So I think a lot of people were taking things and being like having a conscience about it, or being a little bit, let's not talk about it.
And that was my problem. Was like I was telling my sales guy, I said, I really don't think this is what we need to do right now. But he did, and we did it, and it didn't work, and against my better judgment, it was like he didn't want to do it. And so it started out as more, it started out like a mockumentary, and then I morphed it into an actual action film, because the second half of the film I love so much more than the first half. Because the second half of the film, they're fighting, and at the end, she does a total blaxploitation thing. She goes in with a shotgun, and she just starts taking people out. And that's the kind of movies I do. It's a sort of retro blaxploitation. It's action adventure. And if I had done the whole movie in that mode, I think it would have been a much better picture. But again, this film was sort of given to me. And the first title of the film was The Black State. And it was supposed to be this thing about police brutality. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. But then it turned into something else because it wasn't my movie from the start. If it had been my movie from the start, it would have been all about this badass black Pam Grier wannabe out here just causing holy hell. And it would have been a hell of a movie. So we revisit that later with her in a film we'll talk about probably soon here. But yeah, that was what happened. It was a film that I didn't originate at all. I just sort of, again, I just was given this idea and I took the reins of it, and you have what you have.
Okay. Moving on to another film that is called 6 Feet Below Hell.
Yes.
But it is now called Running from the Dead, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. The version from Bayview was Running from the Dead, and that was after Redbox did its run with 6 Feet Below Hell. And 6 Feet Below Hell was actually, again, a film I didn't want to do. I wasn't into doing the zombie thing, but zombies were popular, and my sales guy was looking for something that would be catchy. And when I came with the title 6 Feet Below Hell, he said, "Oh my God, that's it." And yes, when we pitched that title and the artwork on the original cover, Redbox bought the thing basically sight unseen. They were just like, "This is it. Okay, we'll take it." And it was the most profitable film I've shot to date. And I imbued it with, a martial arts aspect. So it's not just a zombie film. I'm doing my martial arts in the film, which people actually, they loved it, because the film stayed at Redbox for 3 years. And most films at Redbox don't last more than its initial 6 to 8 week run, maybe a month, maybe 2 months, but films don't stay at Redbox for 3 years. And it was there for 3 whole years. And I'm very proud of that fact. And as I said, it's the one that got us the most revenue. We had a lot of people
What is the story, real quick, before we?
There's a virus unleashed in a lab. Terrorists unleash it into the water system, and then people start turning into zombies. And I happen to be a government agent who was out on another mission at the time, and then the world comes to an end. So I go into hibernation. But prior to that, I was given this mission to find the antidote for the virus. And so the rest of the film is me trying to hook up with the doctor who is hidden in this secret base called Sanctuary, who's guarded by this military presence. So I got to get in, rescue him, get the serum, go out and cure the world. So that's basically it. So it just lends itself to a lot of fighting zombies and Russian agents and spy stuff and going into a maze. And it's just, you know, just from there, it's just a free-for-all. So okay. It's just a fun action movie.
Okay. Going on to your next project, you went into a film called Black Mamba.
And that's where Angela Davis comes full circle from Straight Outta Hate. She was not able to be in 6 Feet Below Hell because she was having kids. God bless her. She had a nice set of twins, 2 beautiful boys. And so she had spent the year off taking care of her kids, getting a family together. And I said, "Are you ready to come back for a movie?" And she says, "Well, I still got the baby fat on me." And I laughed. And we had a really heart-to-heart talk about this prior to filming because the original conception was I needed a really athletic, slim and trim, hot, sexy Angela again. And now she had a kid, so she had weight on her. But then it occurred to me, well, let's make this interesting. So the character and her friends are part of this neighborhood watch program, and there's this drug dealer who doesn't want them doing the neighborhood watch. So he murders them, has them all murdered. She's pregnant at the time in the storyline. So I said, so let's make a scene where you're talking to these people in the afterlife who are going to send you back, but they want to put you in a new body. But they give you the choice of coming back with your unborn child, so you have to fight pregnant. And so that changed the whole dynamic of the film. So she comes back still carrying her child, but she's going on this revenge tour. And so the whole movie surrounds this woman who's pregnant, kicking everybody's ass, killing the gangsters who killed her previously. And at the end of the film, we finally show the twins and her pushing them in the carriage, and everybody lives happily ever after. So that film was very near and dear to my heart because there was a day on the set where Angela broke down in tears because she was ashamed of the way she looked. And I said, "Hun, I'll deal with this. We can explain this." I said, "The great idea is you're still carrying your kids." And her eyes just opened up. She stopped crying. She says, "Do you really want to do this?" I said, "Angela, I love you, man. You're a phenomenal actress. I'm not going to let this stop us from doing this movie." Because there was a point at which where some of the producers were like, "Well, maybe we need to recast." I said, "No, Angela's role."
No offense, I get this from my fiance all the time. I don't look good, babe. You look beautiful to me. So shut up.
Yeah. And it was funny because we had the trailer online on this really big website, and some obnoxious motherfucker got on there, and the first thing he says, "Well, she looks a little fat." And dude, I had to read him the riot act. I was like, "Bro, you've watched the trailer, you don't understand the story, so you probably shouldn't even comment." I said, "The whole theme of the film is she's come back from the dead, and she doesn't want to give her kid up. Okay, so you can just take that rotten attitude and that nasty comment and get the hell out of here." And when people saw it, and then that was what was really catchy about the film. People were like, "Oh my God, I've never seen anything like this." I mean, she's carrying a kid and she's beating demons up. You know, it's like, who does that? You know? So yeah, it made the film a very different, unique storyline.
Well, and I would put that into like sort of a category, kind of like that shoot 'em up film where that
yes.
The chicken there was like carrying around a chick or whatever, so or a kid. So
yep.
Definitely a different mindset there as far as people and as far as like what the public may concern themselves about it. But
definitely. Yeah.
How was the film's reception?
Oh, we had another premiere. Everybody absolutely ate it up. My sales guy thought it would be another Redbox hit, but Redbox, and this is Hollywood again, Redbox had a complete changeover in management.
Was it a different title then?
I'm trying to think. No, it's always we were going to do. It was going to be Kill Mamba Kill was a variation on the title, but it was always Black Mamba. There was no so Redbox had a change in management in between the time we shot 6 Feet Below Hell and Black Mamba, because we thought we had an agreement with them for 5 movies, and this new management just kicked everybody out that we ever dealt with, and it was like now all they were interested in was romantic comedy. So Black Mamba was in this abyss where we couldn't depend on Redbox to do it anymore. So it just sat around for a year, and I said, fuck that, I got to find a distributor. So we went with Bayview, and from what I understand, had a pretty good reception as far as being on Amazon Prime and also through DVD release. So, it didn't do as well by any standard as 6 Feet Below Hell, because we didn't have Redbox is a monster. I mean, it just gives you such a wide reach, and they just pay so well, and there was no way I was ever going to make that kind of money on Black Mamba. But as far as reaction, I've had letters and emails again from around the world. People just absolutely love this movie. It just didn't get a fair shake as far as distribution is concerned, which was a tragedy, because we put a lot of work in that film, and Angela was magnificent in it.
Okay. Moving on to a film called The Goocher. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, though?
Goocher was me giving my middle finger to Hollywood. And because we said, what we're going to do is we're going to go out and shoot a feature in one day, because apparently they're not even looking at these DVDs. So fuck them. We'll just run out here. We got this really bare storyline about some woman that was murdered in the woods, and she comes back and kills people. And that was it. We ad-libbed so much of this movie, bro. It was like I had like 20 pages of script, and the rest of it was make it up as we go along. So I'd say, okay, now you're going to run over here, you kill him with this. And that's how we shot it. So at the end of the first day, I went home with all the footage, and we still didn't have enough for a feature, at least what I consider 90 minutes feature. So I said, okay, I got another storyline. Now there's a secret government organization that actually built this Goocher to be a killing machine, and now the Goocher has unleashed more Goochers in the woods. So we went back 3 more days, shot more footage, and then we came up with this really tense ending where the guy that created these Goochers is talking to the scientist who wants to really get him out there as a population control device. And it's a real creepy ending. It's like unlike anything else in the film. So we took 4 different sessions of filming, and finally we had our feature. My artist in the United Kingdom did an absolutely amazing poster for the movie. My sales guy loved it, and we went DIY. We didn't go to Redbox because Redbox was out of the question at this point. And actually, that film is scheduled to be on Tubi TV. We're pitching it to Tubi, so we're waiting for it. So it's one of those films where we made it a while back, and it sort of had a DVD release on Amazon. We made a little bit of money there, but it hasn't gotten to the streaming venues yet. So we're hoping that once we get it on Tubi, it's going to be more widespread and get a better reaction. Because at this point, we haven't really had the opportunity to have a mass audience see it unless you actually are on Amazon and you happen to buy the DVD. So once it gets on Tubi, I think it'll have an even better release. I've seen it reviewed on several indie film sites. And the one person said, well, there's one thing about a William Lee film. There's always something happening. Every couple minutes, somebody's dying or something's going on. So they enjoyed it. So like I said, there's a limited response at this point. So it's one of those delayed reaction things. So we haven't really seen the full potential of the film at this point, but I hope to.
Okay. Before we talk about any more your films, I just wanted to I noticed that this particular film, Alien Butchers, you produced and wrote this film. Yes. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the project? I know it's not directed necessarily by you, but what is your involvement in this film?
I had a protege named Jason Shearlow, and I wanted to help his film production company get off the ground. He and his girlfriend were very interested in doing films, so I said, you know what, I'll lend my name to it and I'll help you get a distribution deal with it, but I don't want to be in it or really have a lot to do with it. So basically, this is his baby. I let him figure out the scenarios. I wrote the film, the outline, and the basic structure of the movie. But I said, as far as the film itself goes, this is yours to do with as you please. So the basic story was aliens abducting people and then doing experiments on people. And it was just supposed to be, this was one where it was supposed to be a gore fest, but we also wanted to have a story around it. So it was sort of like Straight Outta Hate, where it started out as a mockumentary about a guy who is doing a TV show that is investigating all these conspiracy theories. And then it goes on to become a real-life terror show because he and his crew, sort of like the Blair Witch Project, go out in the woods, and now they're sort of at the mercy of these aliens. So the main actor in the film, William Miller, who was also the Russian gang leader in Gangsters Incorporated, is the focal point of this film. And the great thing about it is William plays it really tongue-in-cheek. He's like goes over the top with his acting performance, and it is hilarious. And my sales guy loved this film, but it was just so out there that distributors just couldn't wrap their heads around what they could do with it, which is where it really failed in terms of being released. Because William's performance in this film, I think, is just, dude, it's all. I mean, I just watch him like, this dude's a genius. And the sad part about it is William died. I think it was a year after we filmed this thing, which was a tragedy because I wanted to do a sequel with a little more production value and a better story and more actors. Because again, this was sort of like the Gucci, where it was like we were sort of giving a middle finger to Hollywood, where it's like, you guys put out so much trash. Look, we're going to out trash you, but we're going to do something with a little bit of thought and integrity behind it. Because Williams, again, anybody that sees this film, if you can't appreciate what William Miller did, almost totally unscripted, I'm sorry, you don't understand independent filmmaking, because he just steals the whole show. I mean, you just keep watching this. Is this guy for real? Mm-hmm. And he would do these, like there's a scene in there where he's interviewing this guy who apparently got inside Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and saw all these dead alien bodies. Yeah. I didn't write a word of that. They ad-libbed that entire 20-minute sequence. Both of these guys just playing off each other. And it just works because it's natural. And the one guy that's doing the tales about the alien stuff, he came up with all this shit about bodies in the thing and the private files, and I didn't come up with any of that. I was there that day. I wasn't directing. I was just the producer sitting on set. Jason was running the show, and they just rattled this 20-minute piece off, and I'm like, that's one of the best fucking things I've ever seen in my life. It just, and like I said, it just suffered because we just didn't have the proper venue to launch it on. And people didn't understand. We were trying to do a lot of tongue-in-cheek stuff. Yeah, we have the gory parts and the aliens cutting people open, and it wasn't supposed to be serious, but people were, there was a group of people who got it, and there's a group of people like, you didn't show the aliens, man. What is this? That was the point. I'm not I don't want to show you everything. I want you to have a fucking imagination. But
exactly.
There were people out there who wanted to actually see the aliens and see them cut people open, and the aliens in the camera, and you're like, oh my God, that's the alien. I didn't want that. And my sales guy was like, no, don't show the aliens. My sales guy was the same way. Don't show the aliens. Show them getting cut up, but don't show who the aliens are. And I guess we failed with half of the audience, but that was my intent. I wanted people to always say, "Oh my God, I didn't really see anything, but God, what was it?" So yeah.
So moving on, I just want to ask you about your Willie Jack series of short films. I know we kind of skated over some of your earlier shorts, but I figured we'd go backwards and then we'll go forwards.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about those?
Willie Jack. Well, obviously we're doing a takeoff on Billy Jack, who during the 70s, Tom Laughlin was this half Indian, half white guy who was fighting for some really important political issues for Native Americans. The films are legendary. If you don't know about them, folks, you've got to go watch them because Tom Laughlin was the man. I'm sorry. We absolutely loved him back in the day. So we did Willie Jack. And so I was working at my mother's nursery. She took care of kids during the day. And I would teach the kids martial arts during the day. Mm-hmm. And so then also being in movies, I said, well, I'd like to get these kids involved in actually doing movies because it was fun. It was something we could do while the kids were there. And it was totally different from any other nursery in the world. We were putting their kids in movies. So my nephew who stars in this series, James Buchanan, he plays Willie Jack. And then we have all these kids, and we sort of flip the script where the little kids are the antagonizing bastards, And my nephew, who is a teenager, is the one who is the victim of their assaults. So we totally flipped this whole dynamic. So now it's not child abuse, it's the children who are the villains in this thing. And so then we did the most absurd situations where he's throwing kids in the barrels and through windows, and he's just beating the hell out of these kids. I guess he probably couldn't do it now. They'd probably charge us with child abuse. But the whole concept of it is that there's a fully grown adult male being terrorized by kids from a nursery school. And it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. And we were just having fun. It was just something to do during the summer. And the reason I told Agfa to release it was because I wanted to see people, me doing something that wasn't my typical thematic martial arts ninja film. This was something just totally off the cuff, something we did to entertain ourselves, and something that we thought would be so offensive to most people that they would go, either they'd really hate it or they would figure it out that it was like the Three Stooges, which basically what it was our take on the Three Stooges.
I would say that it look more human.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Because I actually come in as a guest villain in one of the episodes. I think it was the third one. Not Willie Jack in the Jungle. I think it was The Return of Willie Jack. One of the four, but it was not the original one. But I actually come in. Now I'm a bigger adult fighting the adult, and I get my ass whipped in this one too. But yeah, it was just, yeah, you're right. It was just giving the kids something to do, letting them have some fun, and being just absolutely silly. And they, to this day, those little kids who are now fully grown adults, they remember this stuff, and they're you know, hey, Mr. Lee, remember that? You know, I said, here it is. Now you can see 30 years later what you did. There's one kid in this project who is one of the gang leader. His name is Jamie Skelton. He actually went on to become a famous basketball star at the Ohio State University. It's just amazing the kinds of people that you have in these films and what they go on to do with their lives afterwards. You know, it just really
definitely.
Is. Yeah.
So the next project that you did after the Goocher is Black Wolf, which yes. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that production?
Yeah, Black Wolf is a total cathartic experience for me because it's basically my life story, fictionalized. And I talk about what we discussed at the very outset of this program is me being bullied all through life and, you know, physically abused and, you know, just every nasty little thing that was done to me during my move from New York to Ohio. And being really soul crushed and spirit crushed, and then finding a way out of that experience to become the man that I eventually became. And so I fictionalized all my hated school time buddies, and now they're international terrorists, and now I'm assigned to hunt these fuckers down and kill them. And so actually during the filming, I had to visualize these people because I don't use their real names, but their names are close enough that if they're still out there, and yes, many of them are, will know that that's who I am using for my inspiration in this film. And I've even gone on school reunion pages to warn them that once you see this, you'll know who you are. It's pretty evident who the fuck you are. I want you to understand I hate your guts. And so through the film, while we were shooting this, it was so emotional that I was like seeing the people that I was referencing in real life while I was fighting them in the movie. And it became really personal for me. I mean, there's a scene in there with this guy that I just, to this day, I swear to God, I hate him. And I hated the actor playing him as much as the real life person. That's how deep this movie got. And then there was a scene where there's two women that I'm involved with in the film. And one of them is based on a true story of a girl in New York who, we had gone back. We were planning to move back to New York in 1975, I think, 4 or 5. And I met this girl in school, and we fell in love. And it was like then my parents decided we were going back to Ohio. I've never seen her again since that day. It was like a year and a half love affair. Gone. So I put that story in this film. And the woman that played this role, I had those feelings again during this film. It was like I was finding this woman that I had lost and fell in love with her again in this film. And then there's another woman in the film who represents my wife or significant other now, and I have this fling with this woman, and then the woman that I love realizes it, and she's also a government agent, and she's one trying to save my life. So now she has this dilemma of, oh my God, Billy Black Wolf cheated on me. Am I really invested in saving his life, or should I just say fuck it and let him die? And it's like, we did a scene in this film, I kid you not, where me and the two ladies involved were crying on set because it was so emotional. There's a scene at the end of the film, and I'm not going to spoil it because it hasn't been released yet.
Mm-hmm.
But we three are involved in this intense discussion about my life and who do I really love. And bro, we were bawling. We just were crying our eyes out. We had to do take after take after take. We spent 3 hours shooting that last scene, and there was one scene that ran for 14 minutes, uncut, that we went through. And it was all down my face. I was just, because I was letting my soul come out, talking about how I'd been hurt my whole life, and this woman that I only knew for a year was the first woman that ever really loved me just for me. But I was still in love with the woman that I was with because she came to me at a time when I was sick with lupus and was recovering. So I had these two women at very pivotal points in my life who are now sitting in front of me, and I got to decide who I'm going to love. And let me tell you, it was gut wrench. It was just, I think I was so exhausted. We took 6 months off. Usually I try to jump into a film right afterwards, but I couldn't do it, man. I was still emotionally there in that film for like 6 months after we shot it. And so was everybody else. Yeah, it just took everything in your soul. It just took it and just ripped it out, and it was just bare. And I wanted that. I told everybody at the beginning of the film, I said, look, guys, I want you to understand this is my life. And I'm going to get really raw during this film. And I said, there's going to be moments where I just lose it. There was times I just broke down on set, and I just started crying, and I just walked off in the corner. And God bless my cast. They understood what I was going through. And they supported me through the whole movie. Every time I broke down or just couldn't do anything or was just so fucking pissed that I was punching the walls, they lived with it. And they nursed, the crew, cast and crew nursed me through. I guess I got to say, they were sort of like my extended family in this movie. It's the most emotional thing I've ever done. And it was just like, I always hate actors that get on and talk about, my heart and soul. But, dude, really, this was my heart and soul and my spirit in this film. And it was the most emotional, intense thing I've ever done in my life. I don't think I could do it again, really. But for those 8 weeks that we shot this film, every day it was just like I would get up in the morning and I had to sit in that fucking mirror in my bathroom and just compose myself for a half hour before I could even head to the set. And then it was like an hour after the film, I'm still sitting there in my chair going, God, I don't know, man. I don't know if I can do this. And we finished it. I sent it to my sales guy. He watched 15 seconds of it. He said, dude, this is the most awesome thing I've ever seen. We're going to sell this. So we're currently talking to Tubi and all the other big outlets to get this thing actually out to the public. But like I said, it just took everything I had, and it just drained the fuck out of me. So it was a year of just, and this was during the COVID, so we had to have really tight restrictions on the set. Everybody was wearing masks. It was just, some people actually got sick during filming. We had to shut down filming for a while, and but I'm very proud of that film. I can't wait to show that to the world, and that was a life experience. That wasn't a movie. That was a life experience. It just everybody was affected by that.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
So at the moment, I believe that you are filming Bulletproof Jesus.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that film?
Bulletproof Jesus is unlike anything I've ever done before, except that it is like when we did Architect of Chaos, I played Jesus. But this is doing that film, having the resources I did not have on the first movie, having full 4K camera with a cameraman who was just William Newton is his name, the most incredible cameraman I've ever worked with. We sort of communicate through telepathy because I'll think of something, he's got it set up before I can even get the words out of my mouth. The cast is phenomenal, and I've been so impressed by the footage. I haven't really started to edit it. Usually I edit as we film, but I come home and I said, this film is so perfect, I'm afraid to actually touch it and edit it because there are 2 trailers online right now, and if you go see them, you will understand why I'm talking like this, because this is a film that just, production quality-wise, it is on this level here. I mean, Black Wolf, again, spiritually and physically, it's like right here. Bulletproof Jesus is just up here. It's just out of this world. It is just out of this world quality-wise. We shot on a beach this weekend, and there's a shot of me walking through a flock of seagulls, and we do it in slow motion, and it's like a John Woo movie. That's how good this fucking movie is.
And you told me you lost your voice yesterday.
Yes, that we shot this weekend, and I wanted to do a bulk of my fight scenes this weekend. So we started out at 8:00, and my character Jesus is really getting whipped on in this particular portion of the film, and I'm screaming, and I'm doing my yells during my fight scenes. And I'm 59, but I think I'm still in good shape. But I'm doing the spin kicks and the flips, and we just shot fight scene after fight scene after fight scene, and we were in the hot sun. We had a lot of scenes that were I did a sword fight in the sun, which is one of the greatest things I've ever done too. And at the end of the day, I was just whipped. So I go to bed, and Sunday morning I get up, and my voice is gone. Right now, I'm just getting to the point. I've been speaking to you for almost an hour and a half, 2 hours. I couldn't speak. I freaked out. I woke up at 4:00 in the morning, and I'm going, hello, hello. I couldn't enunciate. I guess my vocal cords had been so fucked over by screaming and yelling and all this other stuff that they just wouldn't work. And I really thought I had permanently done damage to my voice. I could not, and I was sitting up at 4:00 drinking hot tea with honey, trying to get my voice to work. And I spent all Saturday and Sunday unable to say anything. So today, now I'm at a point where I'm speaking. It's still not 100, but I had to teach a 2-hour lecture right before I talked to you. And as I emailed you earlier, I was like, God, I don't know. I may not be able to get through this. Luckily, I was. But yeah, so Bulletproof Jesus, again, is like the second film in a row where there's all this emotion and spiritual this and that going into this movie. I got to make a comedy or something. I don't know, man. I'm burning the candle at both ends here with these movies. But no, I feel, to be honest with you, man, I really feel that only in the past 3 years that I have become a true filmmaker.
Okay.
And that's saying a lot because I've been doing this 40 years. And it's like, it's only in the last 3 years I feel that I have actually mastered being a filmmaker. I've always had the tools here, but to actually put everything together where I feel like I'm walking on set and I'm coming away with something that I really can be proud of, I really, at 59 years of age, I really feel like I'm just getting there. And I don't know if people agree with that or not, but I do. I really feel like now, at this time in my life, the next 10, 15 years is where my best work is going to be done. And it just feels good. It just feels like I'm where I need to be. Okay. And I'm really, and this is funny to say, I'm a professor of film, but I really don't think I understood film like I do in these past 3 years. I don't know what it is. It's like a new revelation or something that's come over me where I'm like, oh my God, if I had known this when I was 20 or 30 or 40, I would have really done something. And now I really feel like in these past 3 years, I'm doing some shit that I'm really proud of. I mean, I'm not trying to gas myself up, make myself look like fucking Kurosawa. But in the past 3 years, I do feel like I am at a level that I never dreamed I'd be at. And I'm really proud. Like I said, Black Wolf, Black Mamba, and Bulletproof Jesus, I am so proud of these movies. And these are movies I will fight a motherfucker for. If a motherfucker says these films are bad, I'll be in the street fighting motherfuckers. Because these are good movies. I'm sorry. Other ones, I can take the criticism. Yeah, shit I didn't do right. Production value, I understand. These last 3 movies, motherfucker better not say nothing about these movies. I'm sorry. These are what I am seriously proud of doing because I think it's more. There's more emotion in them as opposed to technical. Before it was technically getting stuff done. Now I feel like I'm really telling stories, and I'm being, like Bruce Lee said, the hardest thing to do is to be yourself, to be a human. And I really feel like I'm becoming a human in these past 3 movies. It just seems, it's like you said with Willie Jack, that was human. That was just us out there just letting it fly, man. Mm-hmm. There wasn't any agenda. There wasn't any plan. It was just like, let's go have fun. Mm-hmm. And let's just let me be me and let me be human. And these last 3 films, that's William Lee as a human being. These last 3 movies. If I could do a trilogy, this would have been the trilogy. I really think that. Okay. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you about 2 more projects. Treasure of the Ninja 2.
Ah! That's going to be the quadrilogy.
And Wesson.
Yes. Treasure of the Ninja 2 is going to be my full circle career. defining movie. Whereas these three films I'm doing now, I consider as a trilogy. Treasure Ninja 2 is going to be sort of like this come back, quote unquote, come back to Jesus moment with reckoning with the film that sort of launched everything. And Treasure Ninja, yeah, go ahead.
One thing I just want to say to the audience out there is that I do believe that there are 10 days left on the Kickstarter that you have out there.
Yes.
So,
and it's funny because on the last time we did this, somebody pledged 10 grand right at the very end, and it was like we just missed the cutoff of getting the full funding. So I relaunched it in the hopes that whoever this person was, please come back, and we can get the whole thing funded. But yeah, for Treasure the Ninja 2 is a script that was originally titled Running from the Dead, which is the title of 6 Feet Below Hell now. But basically, it's these fucking zombie nuclear ninjas, these soldiers that have been trained in ninja combat or covert operations, who get injected with this drug, which turns them into quote-unquote super ninjas. And it's 105 levels under the surface of the earth, and the dude who created the serum also has the antidote, and he's down at the bottom of this sucker. So me and my ragtag team of mercenaries has to fight 105 levels down and get him out, and then come all the way back up through it. And there's your freaking movie. That's Treasure of the Ninja Part 2. And what it means is it's plenty of time for ninjas and fighting and action and buddy movie and your favorite characters getting killed off or not, and that's it. That's the whole thing. And it's fun. It's just us letting it go. It's just like Treasure Ninja Part 1, but it's 30 years later with a little more money to do something a little more high tech. That's what it is. And I'm really excited about it. And I really hope that if we achieve our $10,000 goal, I can make that movie. So we'll see how it works.
Okay. And Smith & Wesson.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that project?
Smith & Wesson is one of those unicorns that you always look for. Fred Williamson and I became friends about 2 years ago. Fred I have loved for decades because he was the godfather of blaxploitation cinema. Mm-hmm. And he had worked with a friend of mine out in Los Angeles for some time. And this is another story of where I did not go out seeking this. This is Fred Williamson, one of my idols, reaching out to me, which just blew me the fuck away. I had no clue that he wanted to work with me or even knew who the hell I was, but he did. And so one night, my friend says, Fred wants to talk to you. I said, Fred who? Fred Williamson. I said, you're fucking kidding. No, Fred Williamson wants to talk to you. I said, oh, gee, dude, I was speechless. You don't have your idol say he wants to. Usually it's you groveling. Hey, and I've never done that. I hate that whole groveling. I don't believe in that. I said, I don't think I'm worthy to be groveling to somebody. And I said, I think it's desperate. I don't like that desperate look. It's like when I work with actors and they do anything to be in the film. I'm like, that's when I don't need you, when you're desperate. You just have to be yourself. And if you are worthy or good enough, you'll get it. So that was my thinking. So anyway, he said Fred was going to call me. I sent my number to him through my friend. And one night at midnight, the phone rings. I'm half awake. And the first thing I hear is, Will, Mr. Hammer. Damn! And we were on the phone for an hour and a half talking about filmmaking and how black filmmakers fucked up blaxploitation and how he got together with all the big names in black film back in 1978 and had a plan to make sure black film survived. And none of these black MFers was down with this plan. They were all slaves to Hollywood. They all figured Hollywood was going to be kind to them. And they were part of the union. And they didn't want to do anything to mess up what they had. And Fred Williamson was telling them, no, we got to become self-sufficient. And in retrospect, Fred Williamson had everything right. But these people, who shall remain nameless, were happy and satisfied with where they were. They were just happy with the little crumbs that Hollywood would give them. That feature film once every 4 years, and blah, blah. Life is too short, bro. Sorry. So Fred went to Germany. He made over 50 movies. If you go look at his IMDb, there are films you have never seen. But he made them in Germany. He funded them. He owns all the rights to them. He is a self-sufficient movie-making machine, and I fucking respect everything Fred Williamson does. I will say that for the record. So Fred we had this wonderful discussion, and he was asking me how he found out about some of these scripts that I had written and that are in my filing cabinet and hadn't been seen for 20 years. I don't have no clue, but Fred Williamson must be like on the God level. But he started asking me about these films that nobody's supposed to know about. So he says, well, I got this movie, and I want to get it made. And I said, Fred, I cannot afford you, bro. I can't. He says, no, you don't understand. I'm not asking you to afford me. He says, I want you to be part of a legacy with me. And dude, that just blew me the fuck out of the water. I was like, oh my God, this dude wants me to actually be part of not just be a peon that makes a movie. He wants me in the movie alongside him as a co-star. So he came up with the script for Smith & Wesson. And our big hurdle is the fact that while you and I and many people in the film business know who Fred Williamson is and his importance to the film world, this younger generation does not have a fucking clue. So to go on Kickstarter, it just didn't work out because these kids don't know. They don't get how important Fred Williamson is. So we couldn't do it that way. So we are stuck in a point where we just can't get the money to launch this puppy. He has the crew ready in Canada to shoot it. I'm ready to go kick some ass. We got the script. We have co-stars that are ready to jump on. It's just bridging that gap between wanting to and being able to get money to do it. So it's still on the burner. It's on the front burner, but it's just a matter of getting money. If we get that money, it's going to launch. And it's going to be the greatest fucking thing ever made. But like I said, there's a difference between the real world and what I really would like to do and what Fred Williamson can do and the general public. So that's where we are with that. Yeah.
Very cool. Now, what is your production company's name?
Cinema Lexicon, and Lexicon is spelled Lexzikon, and it just means the language of film. The actual spelling of lexicon means language, so that's what Cinema Lexicon is, language of film.
Okay. Now, is there a website for your particular production company that maybe we might be able to see where we can find some of your films?
It's www.cinemalexicon, all one word, cinema, and then lexzikon.com, all one word. And that's where I have the films posted up, links to trailers, links to my Facebook page, links to my Twitter page. Everything's on that website, basically. But if you Google William Lee and like 6 Feet Below Hell, it basically, then you'll start getting hits from all over, and you'll find me. I'm all over the fucking internet. How I got there, I don't know. I guess it's just persistence and me making so many freaking movies every year. That probably was part of it. But yeah, I'm not hard to find. Just William Lee. If you go on IMDb, and same thing with Tubi TV. If you go to Tubi TV and type up William Lee, all 6 of my movies will pop up. It's all, internet is a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on. I appreciate the time you set aside for us to come on. It's been a wonderful pleasure.
Glad my voice made it all the way through because I think it's going to collapse here. I got a doctor's appointment. So, yeah.
Well, once again, thank you. And hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, you can definitely check out his films and give them a watch here because you got to support your independent artists out there, no matter whether they're black, white, Hispanic, you name it. I mean, they are prolific, and to me, it's been kind of inspiring to listen to some of the stories that you came out and told me.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
But in any case, I think that's all the time that we have for today, folks. So thank you for listening. Like, share, and subscribe. And hopefully you can stay tuned because this next week is definitely busy for me. Thursday, I have another interview lined up. So stay tuned for that night. I will keep you posted on the Facebook page as to when, who, and where. So in any case, thank you for listening and enjoy.
Thank you.